Richard Coleman was the kind of man who measured love in dollars. CEO of a luxury real estate firm, father of one, widower for 3 years, he believed success could fix everything. He hired Maria 2 years ago to help raise Ethan after his wife, Claire, passed away in a car crash. But Richard barely noticed the maid beyond her duties. She cleaned, cooked, and cared for Ethan. He assumed that was all. Until that night. When he confronted her, Maria didn't panic. She stood up slowly, placed a gentle hand on Ethan's shoulder, and whispered, "Please, Mr. Coleman. Don't wake him. He's learning." "Learning?" Richard snapped. "You woke him up at 3 in the morning to speak gibberish?" "It's not gibberish," she said softly. "It's memory." Richard pulled Ethan into his arms and ordered Maria to leave immediately. By morning, he'd already contacted a replacement. But when he went to wake Ethan for breakfast, something strange happened. The boy was humming a tune. A lullaby, one Richard hadn't heard in years. It was the same song Claire used to sing before bed, but Ethan was singing it in Spanish. When Richard asked where he learned it, Ethan said, "Mom taught me, with Maria." That sentence hit him like a punch. Claire was gone. Maria wasn't even from Spain, she was from the Philippines. So how did Ethan know the song, and in a different language? Chapter 2, The Secret Lesson. The next few days, Ethan's behavior grew stranger. He started drawing symbols, reciting foreign words, and even writing notes in different scripts. When Richard asked what they meant, Ethan said, "Maria said it helps me remember mommy." That night, Richard sat alone in the study, staring at the security footage from the previous week. And what he found changed everything. On screen, Maria was teaching Ethan patiently, each night after Richard went to bed. She spoke in 5 languages. She used flashcards, lullabies, even drawings. Ethan repeated each word like a little scholar. But one video stood out. It was from 2 nights before the incident. Maria was crying. In front of her lay a small photo of Claire and Maria together. The timestamp said 2015. That was 3 years before Claire's death. Richard's eyes widened. How did they know each other? He paused the video and noticed something else, Claire's handwritten note on the back of the photo. "To Maria, thank you for saving my life, and for the promise you made." The next morning, he drove straight to Maria's small apartment on the outskirts of town. She was sitting outside, watering her plants, when he pulled up in his sleek black Mercedes. Her eyes looked tired but kind. "I knew you'd come," she said quietly. "Start talking," he demanded. "How did you know my wife?" Maria took a deep breath. 10 years ago, I worked as a caretaker at St. Mercy Hospital. Your wife, Claire, was my patient after a terrible accident. She had lost a baby back then, a little boy. She couldn't speak for months. But I never gave up on her." Richard's anger slowly faded as she continued. "She taught me French and Spanish to keep my mind sharp during long nights at the hospital. And one day, she said, if I ever have another child, promise me you'll teach him what you taught me, languages of the heart." Tears filled Maria's eyes. "When you hired me after her death, I didn't want to remind you of her pain." But Ethan, he had her smile, her curiosity. "I just wanted to keep her promise." Richard stood speechless. The image of Maria whispering those words in the night, "he must remember," suddenly made sense. She wasn't haunting his son. She was helping him remember his mother's love, through the languages she once cherished. But there was still one question. Why did Ethan say Mom was teaching him too? Maria smiled faintly. "Because when we practiced, I played her voice recordings. From her therapy sessions. She used to record herself reading bedtime stories in 5 languages. I found them in an old USB drive she once gave me." Richard's throat tightened. He could almost hear Claire's soft laughter echoing through those recordings. The same voice Ethan heard in the night. Chapter 3, Redemption. That evening, Richard came home early. He found Ethan sitting in the garden, humming again. This time, it wasn't just a song, it was 5 different verses, each in a new language, but all carrying the same melody. He sat beside his son quietly. "Buddy, what does that song mean?" he asked. Ethan smiled. "Maria said it means, Mom loves us in every language." Richard's eyes filled with tears. He had spent years drowning in work, thinking money could fill the silence his wife left behind. But in the stillness of that garden, hearing his son sing his mother's memory in 5 languages, he realized what love really meant. It wasn't in the mansion. It wasn't in the bank. It was in kindness, the kind that Maria had carried quietly all along. The next morning, Richard went to Maria's apartment again. But she was gone. The neighbors said she'd left a note and moved back to her hometown. He opened the note. It read, "Mr. Coleman, my work here is done." Ethan remembers now. Claire's love will always speak through him. Please teach him to listen. At the bottom of the note was a small flash drive. When he plugged it into his computer, 5 audio files appeared, each labeled in a different language. When he played the first one, Claire's soft voice filled the room. "Bonjour, mon amour. If you're hearing this, it means Ethan is growing strong. Teach him kindness before success, love before ambition." That's the language the world forgets too easily. Richard sat there, tears streaming down his face, as Ethan walked in and climbed into his lap. "Dad," Ethan whispered, "Mom says she's proud of you." Richard hugged him tight. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. He felt surrounded, by love that transcended life, by kindness that crossed languages, and by the quiet redemption of a woman who kept a promise she never had to.